Good day, everybody. Time for another Out of This World story from our space. Never thought it would come to this. I, 34 male, have been married to my wife, 37 female, for coming up to 5 years, together for 13. We have 2 junior school-aged children. Friday night, we both said we wanted divorce. We each have our own story. Here's mine. For the last 2 years, things have been rocky in parts. Several times throughout the 2 years, there have been several instances where she has lied and done things behind my back that we both consider inappropriate for married couples. Things like being on dating sites, sexting other people, meeting people in person, still maintains no actual affair or sex, lying and deceiving. Every time this has happened, it has been me who has discovered it, never from being told honestly about it. When confronted with evidence, GPS, pictures of messages, etc., she ends up denying it first, and then breaking down and telling me how sorry she was and that she wants to work on it. Then we have a couple of good months. Then I discover she is back to the same old routine. Now, throughout the last year, I have been absolutely paranoid to the point of asking to look at phones, accounts, etc. She has become so good at hiding things, but I always find out. Be it hidden Facebook accounts, email addresses, profile pages. I've hated living like this. Ironically, this is one of the reasons she wants to divorce. My reason is the trust is absolutely gone, and I wouldn't even know where to begin billing it back. From my understanding, this is gaslighting. Now that we are talking divorce, she is telling me she no longer loves me or is attracted to me, and she feels relieved that this is happening. She says that the things she has done in the past were bad, and they were her way to make herself feel better for staying in a marriage for the children. I spoke to her about this and asked did she love me when we married, and she says yes. She says this has been happening for the last couple of years. 2 years ago, she spoke to her mom and said she was planning on leaving me. Her mom gave her some advice and basically told her to work at it. I assume that is why we are now where we are. I wish she had spoken to me about it 2 years ago, before any of this happened. Maybe we could have figured out the problem and worked on it. There are other elements to this story. She has suffered from serious depression for some years. On several occasions, has built up huge secret debts with online shopping, etc. I sometimes wonder if this is all related. Every time something has happened and it's all come out, I've been the one giving the chances and wanting to work on it. I just feel like I have no more energy to do this anymore. I feel awful. I feel terrible for my children. I'm dreading telling them. I know this has to happen and I want this, but the process is so intimidating. I spent the last 2 nights barely sleeping, not eating, just sad. Anyway, that's my story in a nutshell. For the first time in a long time, I don't know what's next, and that scares me. Alright, first, some comments for the community, then an update. Broken Chewy says, unfortunately, there are so many of us in similar situations. I'd like to start by saying that it has nothing to do with you. We cannot control the behaviors or actions of people that make these decisions and take paths that destroy our lives, families, and futures. They are selfish individuals that, even if they feel like they love you and want to protect you, only care about fulfilling other fantasies. We can own our parts in the marriage not going well. But it is never on us that would fight until the end of our marriages, as we don't have a partner that understands that level of dedication and commitment. Will your kids be okay? That depends on a lot of factors. Too many studies in the last 20 years show long-term negative effects on children of divorce. It appears the path to success for them is honestly in everything that has happened. At the appropriate age, therapy, and the willingness for the parents to co-parent in a healthy, open way. Last, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Engage in therapy for yourself. The I'm not enough feeling, anxiety, and living minute to minute sometimes is a brutal thing. You have to know that you are enough. Our next comment comes from, like when you had? I was in a different situation, but while married, my whole life was planned out. House, kids, etc. It was all planned out. Then suddenly, when I filed for divorce, it wasn't anymore. That was scary for me, and even though divorce was the right decision, I didn't realize how scary the future would seem after filing for divorce. It's still kind of scary, but I realized that this can be viewed as a positive. Obviously, having kids, you can't just do anything. But you can kind of do just anything, if you know what I mean. I became the top adult in my life again, and there was a lot more time and energy to put into me. I realize you wish you could see your kids every day, but since you'll end up with some sort of custody arrangement, you'll have alone time. You can use it to learn how to cook, or go to the gym, or whatever hobby that interests you. Just think of what you can become or what you can accomplish by this time next year. So yes, it's hard and scary and not the way you wish it turned out, but that doesn't mean there's no positives to be found. Dogs 94 is up next. Sorry, buddy. Probably the basic problem is that she's an immature brat who wants the world to suit her needs. Then is that you guys possibly shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. It's what happened to me and a lot of other people in this sub. I mean, my ex-wife was like the fourth woman that I'd been on more than 3 dates with in my life. We got along okay and mutually said, "Yay, love, let's get married." Because that's what you're supposed to do when you're 25 and in love. She didn't know any better than I did. I sample more when I buy a pair of pants. Hack, I'm at least taking 2 different waist sizes and 2 different inseams into the dressing room. Not to mention relaxed fit versus snug fit. That's how you find the best pair of pants. Only, we don't do that when we get married. We find a pair of pants that is long enough and can buckle around our waist without falling down and call it done. Then you wash those pants and they shrink and you gain 10 pounds and suddenly they don't fit anymore. But you're stuck with the freaking pants until they rip and get holes in them. Divorce is probably like when the backside of the pants blows out or the pocket gets a hole and all your money falls out. I think that's what kills us. And it isn't that you guys are totally wrong for each other. You're like 80% compatible. Then, one day, one of the spouses gets that gnawing feeling that they might be happier elsewhere doing something else, and that's kinda it. They're probably dumb and naive, since how the hell would they know, right? Once one spouse does that, I think it's really hard to come back from. What sucks is that the other spouse has to get blindsided by this, especially when it happens to the way it has with you. She's doing this stuff in the wrong order. Divorce first, then dating sites. One positive, since you have to look for positives or else you go nuts, she'll be the bad guy forever in this story of divorce. You guys were happily married, not true but whatever, until she started having the secret life and having emotional affairs. You'll be claimed with your kids. When you date in the future, that story will pass muster just fine with other women. To be honest, she sounds like a childish brat. Divorce may be the right thing for you guys, but this thing where people are always looking for something better is just annoying. That's not life. I'm remarried to my wife, who I adore, does all kinds of stupid annoying things, but I also know that she hits all the important things for me and that I'm not going to do better if I date it again. Not like I can go back on Tinder and find her twin sister who also does the laundry the way I like it, you know? Divorce is a tough time. I'm sorry you're going through it, but it also sounds like you're married to a selfish, childish brat, and in the long run, you'll be better off with someone new. Your kids won't like it, but look at it this way. If you hadn't gotten divorced, their only role model for what an adult woman is would be their selfish, childish mom. This way, you have a chance to meet someone new, who's generous and caring. The kids will still love their mom, but at least they have another example to look to. Good luck. All right. Time for the first update. That's right, first, there's more. An attempt at reconciliation. I found great comfort in reading the views and opinions of everyone here while I was considering reconciliation, and even throughout the attempt. It helped me to understand others were going through similar experiences, and more importantly, coming out the other side. Sometimes alone, sometimes together, but always with scars. I ended my reconciliation attempt at the start of January 2019, just after Christmas. Here's my story. My soon-to-be ex-wife, 38 female, and I, 34 male, have been together since 2005. We moved in together after a year or so and began our lives together. Over the course of our relationship, I purchased our first home, had 2 beautiful children, got married, moved to a proper family home, and were seemingly happy. Looking back in reflection, there were red flags. Pretty significant ones at that. Over the course of the relationship, I would often, every 6 months or so, make a discovery that she had been sexting other men via social media and chat apps. The earliest I have recorded being in 2010, before we were married. I trusted her, so I believed the excuse that she needed to feel validated. Her insecurities drove her to it, but it was nothing more than that. It wouldn't happen anymore. I'm all she needed, all she wanted. D-Day for me was February of 2018. A few months prior to D-Day, I found some pretty gravelly messages that heavily implied she was having a relationship outside of our marriage. I confronted her and told me she had been seeing someone strictly as a friend, nothing more. Oddly, I recognized the name as someone she had been sexting back in 2008 and 2009. I wrote her letters, begged for the truth, but was always told that she would never do that to me. Back to February, and I could just not be with her anymore. Always wondering, always in the dark, not knowing what really happened. I was tired of playing detective. I asked for a divorce. She said she didn't want that, but she could understand why I would, and agreed. She went away for a week with the children. I stayed home. Despite being separated, she still did not admit anything more than friendship. Again, I begged for honesty. After all, what difference would it make now? We are moving on with our lives. Again, it was met with innocence. D-Day came 2 days after she left for the week. I recall her having a very close friend, a friend that used to go out drinking with her, a friend that disappeared off the face of the earth a few years back. I called her. What transpired was the most surreal telephone call I have ever had. The friend told me everything she knew. She had been sleeping with a guy A in 2008 and 2009, a one-night stand shortly after, guy B, and another completely new guy for several months, guy C, just months after our wedding day. I was devastated, angry, relieved to know the truth finally. Such a mix of emotions to go through in the space of a 30-minute conversation. I got my car and drove to her. We shouted at each other, vented, then had a discussion. She admitted to what I knew. She didn't know why she was doing it, and she didn't want to split from me. She loved me. She also admitted that she was in fact having a relationship again with the same guy A from 10 or so years ago. After days of arguing, talking, crying, we decided to try and reconcile. We came home, went to individual counselors, her to understand why, me to understand betrayal. This continued throughout the year. We spoke about events many times over the year. I needed to know everything so I would be able to draw a line under it and move on. She promised I knew everything. At times throughout that year reconciliation, I noticed some odd things, little red flags that would be innocent, but I decided to listen to my guy this time around. I called a guy D, that I know she had visited once a couple of years ago, but was adamant nothing ever happened. He picked up. I asked what happened that night, and he told me everything. They were dating for months. She had told him we were separated and divorcing, and I didn't live at home. He slept in my bed, met my children, spent the night, never used protection. It was a total shock to the system. He dumped her after a few months as he didn't believe she was single. He noticed my pictures in my house, my laundry in the laundry bin, my brand new car I bought for her even though she didn't work. He put two and two together and got out of there. He was sorry. He didn't know me to contact me as I don't do social media. Moved away and was in a relationship abroad. I confronted her. Didn't explain I had spoken to Guy D, but asked her again if anything happened there. She denied. I told her I had spoken to him, and she totally validated what he had told me, with the addition that she never used protection with any of the others either, and that Guy A had been recently sleeping with her in my bed. She begged me to stay, begged me not to throw everything away. I made my decision. I needed to get through Christmas for the kids, then I'm calling it. Our reconciliation ended 11 months after D-Day. I would have hoped we could divorce amicably, but it seems I am to blame for not trying hard enough. All I care about now is being the best father I can be to my children and making sure they have a good role model to look to. The weight off my shoulders is immense. I feel free, despite the fact we have only just started working through the divorce. Though I have had the wool pulled over my eyes for the last 13 years, I feel like I have got to this stage a stronger person and really looking forward to what the future brings. It couldn't be any worse, could it? Well, I'm yet to DNA test the kids, so yes, it could be worse, I'm sure. But whatever the outcome, I'm still their dad and always will be. Okay, a few comments, and then back to the updates. The Mockingbird starts this section off. Geez, tough read. I don't envy your situation, and I applaud you for sticking around until after Christmas for the kids. But it's definitely way past time for you to leave and file for divorce. Chan the divorce won't be amicable, and that your soon-to-be ex-wife is blaming you, as if her frequent passive infidelity didn't attribute to the end in any way. Either way, I imagine being single and not having to worry whether your wife is having an affair will give you some peace of mind. The details will no longer matter once you're divorced, since her love life will no longer be any of your concern. Focus on the kids and work on yourself. Life's too short to shackle yourself with a serial killer who clearly has issues. Like, geez, her affairs were essentially relationships. Who the hell introduces an affair partner to the kids? It's sick. One more from Curious Now 9. Wow, sound like you want to hell with her. Good for you for walking away. Some people are just broken. I know there are a lot of people that don't believe once a cheater, always a cheater, but sadly, there isn't enough evidence to prove that when you read stories like yours. Good for you for focusing on your children. They will need you. I waited 12 years to DNA test my kids. The first 8 or so years, I just could not afford it, and fear killed it for me. I wanted to believe she didn't do that to me. My 11th year out, I had to deal with it. I didn't know what I would do if I found out they were not mine. I knew one thing for sure, that I would love them regardless. I had custody at that point, and I was not about to lose that even if they were not mine. I finally did the test. Then for some stupid reason, I waited 3 weeks after receiving the letter to open it. I was thrilled to learn they are in fact mine. She cheated throughout our whole 12-year relationship, and thankfully, they were my children. I wished I had done that test sooner. Good for you for getting out. Never stay with a cheater, especially if you have children. They need at least one stable parent, and they won't have that if you had stayed. Watching over your shoulder the rest of your life isn't worth it. Okay, time for update number 2, awaiting the results. Those of you that read my previous post will know that I've had a good number of years living life completely oblivious to the fact that my soon-to-be ex-wife had been sleeping with and having relationships with several other men. 5 I have evidence of, and subsequent confession, and several more unknowns. As much as I pressed for one, I was never given firm timelines for the earliest affairs. I know she was sexing people in 2010 and had been sleeping with at least one of these men in 2009, but that's all I know before 2013. My children were born in 2011. I asked, begged even, if the children are mine. Of course they are. Why would I ever do that to you? Why wouldn't I just get a termination and keep it from you if they worked? Fair points, but I can't help remember how she took the pregnancy test at the time. I was told she was pregnant over the phone while at work. I rushed home excitedly. We'd been trying for a while. We were excited. When the first scan rolled around, we anxiously awaited for the nurse to see us in. When the nurse told us there were 2 heartbeats, identical twins at that, I was ecstatic. I turned to my soon-to-be ex-wife, who was bawling her eyes out, inconsolable almost. I wondered why. "How will I cope?" she said. I understood at the time. Pregnancy was pretty normal, no major issues. The babies were born and she rejected them immediately. Didn't attempt to breastfeed them, didn't want to be alone with them. Spent 5 days in the hospital barely getting to know them. Depression, I thought, is a lot to go through. It was an emergency C-section too. I got to meet them first while she recovered from the general anesthesia. I thought I understood her reaction. Much later, possibly 5 years even, she went on to tell me she never loved them. Not till much later in their tiny little lies. How? Why? I can genuinely say with all my heart, but love at first sight is real. It's what I felt when the nurse took me into the ward and introduced me to my girls, swaddled together in the same cot, so tiny, 4 pounds for each of them. Then there was a suicide attempt in 2012, 1 year after the girls were born. I was out. She and the girls were home. The girls were in bed in their cot when I found her on the sofa with a bottle of wine and 2 packs of pills. My mom and best friend were with me. The explanation I got for this during our reconciliation was she was depressed over the affairs and thought I deserved better. Why then did she recover and go on to form at least 3 more affairs? It's only now, 1 year past D-Day, that I look back and realize this could be absolutely normal, but it could also be wrong. There's doubt in my mind. Doubt caused by her past actions and deceit, making me doubt the paternity to my own children. How could anyone ever do that to another person? The DNA results arrive Wednesday. How I'll bet you want to know what the answer is, huh? Let's get one quick comment, then I'll tell you. Monster Killer Death Ma says, "Man, good luck is all I can say. I sincerely hope they are yours. I assume you've thought about how the relationship will change if they're not. Will you still parent them? Will you still love them? Will you accept the results of the test, or will you be in denial? If they are not yours, will you tell the potential biological fathers? In some states, I believe, legally, you'll be the father regardless of biology, as you and your wife were married at the time. I recently went through the same thing. I will never forget the feeling and fear leaving my house for the last time, not knowing if I was the father of my oldest. I knew when I was out that I would get the email and the answer. There is hardly any other pain like the pain of having a child ripped from you. For me, my oldest is mine. Then I got my other 2 kids tested. Affairs had ended by the time they were conceived. And they are mine too. But I still question the test for my oldest. I did a court admissible test and went to a doctor's office. But he's got a different body build and a way different growth pattern than my youngest too. I guess he's mine, but it's hard to believe. Okay, drum roll. Update. They're mine.